Hello, and welcome to the Hall of Creation podcast. I am Krisha.
I'm Lance.
And we are husband and wife, best friends, and soulmates. We come together to talk about politics, religion, and world events. And through God's wisdom and seeking knowledge through His Word, we hope to map out the future.
Map it out in the stars.
Best way we can.
Right.
Best way we can. So, for today's topic, my amazing,
July 17th of 2022.
Yes, July 17th, 2022. That is today.
Today.
So, my beautiful husband and I, we are sitting here.
Beautiful.
Oh, I'm sorry. I use beautiful. That's
Keep your hand out on my square, too.
That's right. That's not a manly way to say it. My so handsome, haughty husband of almost 26 years, coming up in about 3 weeks.
Maybe. We'll see.
We're sitting here together, and we are hanging out as family. Him and I, we love each other very much, and we're very blessed. But on a more personal note, right off the bat, we each have a family member that has caused us a lot of pain and distress, and it's been hard to map out in that area how we are to proceed. So we're coming together, and obviously in, how would you say that? In the spirit of privacy, no names would be shared or anything, just basic information. But I'm sure everyone across the board has a family member, has a friend, has a coworker even, that no matter how hard you try, there is a block, there is a wall, and you don't know what to do about it anymore.
Well, it's going to be really hard for me to keep things private considering mine is you.
No, that's so true.
No, that's not true. Well, you know me, all throughout 26 years almost of our marriage, I've not been a big fan of holidays.
Correct.
Because it seems they never really go like you had imagined they would.
Never.
We have this fantasy in our head. Maybe that's because our parents tried to make, some parents anyway, tried to make holidays a really big deal for a while anyway, while you were a kid. And so as an adult, you still want that experience of a holiday being something special. But as I've gotten older and as you've gotten older, we've found that the holidays don't seem to be what they used to be. And
no,
I don't think it's just a sign of the times, is it?
I don't think so, but I don't know if this has happened to anyone else. But you and I, in the almost 26 years we've been married, we have had 2 to 3 tragic events that have happened around either right before or on the Christmas holiday. So holidays in general seem to, for one, bring up bad memories sometimes, but for two, they can, it's almost like, Norman Rockwell. I don't know for you youngins if you know what Norman Rockwell was. Are you youngins out there? But basically it's, that old time perfect family. The pictures were drawn that it was wholesome. You looked at the picture and it made you feel good. It made you feel good to see these people happy and doing their things as family, and, the little shenanigans were cute and, things like that. So to see that is what used to be family, and now to see how a lot of families are, it's very hard to know what the perfect family is anymore, when the perfect family I don't think exists anymore. I don't think it's out there.
The reality does not meet the expectation.
No.
And I think sticking with the subject that you talk about and the relationship issue, on my issue and yours with 2 different people, how the expectations not even remotely close.
No.
I mean, you do all the things that you think are right, and you say the right things, and you have the right spirit about things, and you plan things out, and you try to make things special, and then there's no reciprocation of that same
Correct.
of that same desire, and no will from the other party in both of these circumstances to reciprocate or have
Mm-hmm.
anything to do with us, so to
Correct.
speak.
Well, and what's so funny about it is, you can kind of look at it two ways, as in you are selfishly approaching this individual, this person, to say, we have these issues, we should work through them, and I selfishly want them fixed because, for one, I want either you back in my life, or I don't want to feel bad about it, or I don't want this to be a worry anymore, so you deal with it selfishly. Or there is the other means where you're trying to fix an issue because there's an issue. You know that there's a problem, and you feel responsible that because there's a problem, it should be fixed while there's time to fix it.
Yeah.
And then the other person, no matter how much reason you can give for the issue to be fixed, the reason does not line up with their thinking on it. And it just causes so much heartache when you are using reason. You are using even, biblical methods to
Well,
what you're
and extended
saying.
beyond just the the it's not just a friendship. This is true blood family. So
Right. Exactly.
it makes the urgency or the need to want to fix it even greater,
Correct?
knowing that you guys flow from the same bloodline, and this should be some syncopation there, but
Right.
it's just it's like opposites in a way.
Well, not the same thing, but my mother lives in a retirement center, basically. And there was another lady there that she had befriended, and they've had issues. And now that lady has kind of flipped on her and accuses her of all her issues, and it's her fault that this is all happening. And it's really broke my mom down, and it made me realize, family or not, when someone puts something on you and accuses you of something that you don't own,
Mm.
it is very hard to proceed further with them because they want you to own this thing. They say, you did this, you did that, and I need you to wear this badge so you accept these things I'm saying about you.
It's funny. I don't know if narcissism is a thing that just started creeping up in about the year 2018, 19 to now, or if it's something that's always been there. I guess I should talk into the microphone. And we
Yes.
we just started learning what it's all about. But the number of narcissists that are out there is just mind-boggling. And
So mind boggling.
that's one of their traits, is they want you to own this thing that they say is a reality, even though there's no truth to it whatsoever.
Right. Right.
And to combat that, I mean, I did a whole study on narcissism there for a while through a situation we were going through, and there's not a lot of hope. There's not a lot of hope for change.
Right.
And here lately, I've been thinking to myself that probably the only thing you can do is change yourself. I mean,
Right.
I know that's an old cliche that you can't change somebody else, but the
But it
reality
fits.
of it is there's not a lot else you can do when you've had the conversation, you've
Correct.
shared the facts, they've shared theirs, and even though you're so far off of center, if there's no change just to keep
Hmm.
peace,
Right. Well, and it's, there is the fact that you want the change.
this is a pretty heavy podcast topic to
Right.
start things
Yes,
out with.
absolutely. Most definitely is.
and
But
and I feel like I'm walking on eggshells to be cautious, not to be
right.
too specific.
Exactly. But it's a matter of when you both parties know there's an issue, but the one party would rather shut off the communication than fix it.
Mm.
That is their fix. Their fix is just to shut down the communication, and then the problem goes away. And unfortunately, that doesn't work for either party because it will come back. It'll circle back, Saki.
Circle back, Saki. Well, and you remind me too of how some people are, a lot of people are these days, that try to prove their point and they turn into anger. They get angry because, you're not accepting their side of the argument. And so there is no communication past that point of them yelling and calling you names.
Exactly.
I mean, Tom McDonald just put out that song, Names. They're going to call you names. That's where they're going to go to. And
right. Now, I don't know how it works between, men and women in particular, but I know for myself, I get emotional. I get it from my mother. I absolutely hate it. But I cry when I'm mad, sad, glad, excited. All of them. That's what I do. I cry. So, when things are being said to me, I'm crying. I'm upset about it because whether whether the truth is being said or it's an untruth, however it's coming across, the fact that someone is putting that at me, to me, it's being said to me, and my response is just I burst in tears because I'm so upset that someone would say that to me. But then, in the reality of it, in the true realm of life, boo-hoo, people are going to say things. That is just the truth. And that's another thing, whether they say them internally or externally. Some people just happen to say them out loud.
right.
But most people that you meet form some opinion of you, got something to say about you one way or the other. And given the opportunity, I'm sure they would love to tell you about it because everyone wants to be heard. But some people don't want to hear you back. They want you to hear them.
Yeah.
They want you to hear what they think. But then if you got anything to say back, not interested. Not interested.
Well, and this great ability that we have to check out in a conversation, that is so, even for myself, I've been trying lately to wait and listen to the other person all the way through. We don't listen to the other person all the way through. The second the other person starts to get an opportunity to speak, we check out and we start thinking about what we're going to say next, rather than to listen to everything they're saying. So the communication
I'm very, very, very guilty of this.
The communication doesn't actually happen because each of you, during the time you're supposed to be listening to what the other person is saying, you're preparing your speech to say back to them. So neither one of you ever hear what the other person is saying.
You know what's funny about that? I was just now, I heard everything you just said. But you did spark a thought right at the end.
Right.
A true conversation, if we really thought about it, one person would speak and then you would have a moment of silence. Let the other person process it all. Yeah. Let them get their thoughts and then they speak back. Give that silence that then you process it. But we are so impatient. We're just an impatient people that we can't give those moments to people. We just can't. If there's any moment in between, we're going to fill it with some meaningless chatter. So, I know it's kind of off topic, but...
Well, not really, because whenever you consider having a relationship with somebody, communication is really all you got. If you can't communicate, you don't even have... Now, you can say, I love you. But there's ways to say I love you through communication that the other person can understand that you really do love them. Remember their birthday. Remember the color of their hair or the color of their eyes to start with. Simple things that you can say that the other person can feel more connected to you through that speech. So,
right. Well, I wanted to say, so we have addressed that we both have family members that we have issues with. We have addressed how we have tried to talk to them, and there isn't, at this point in time, we're not getting anywhere with it. So, in this podcast, would we be able to come together and reach any kind of solution or next step?
Well, my step, and that's why I brought up the holidays, because of the expectations that we had that were unmet, and it just seems like every time you approach the situation, you're slamming your own head into a wall. Mm-hmm. And at some point, you just have to step away, I think, and let the other person make the next move.
Well, I appreciate that. I do want to say in my personal story, that when I did have an issue with my family member, I got upset and I yelled and I screamed.
We
And
got
it
to be able to
wasn't
hold our
that,
cool.
right? It wasn't that I don't regret my words. Nothing that I said I felt I would need to take back. It was truth I was saying, but because I was upset, I was being loud. I had a higher volume. I was definitely, you know,
You
echoing.
were angry.
I was angry.
You were angry, and you were
I was
expressing
I
your
was
anger.
expressing my anger, absolutely. But I was not speaking untruth. I do
No.
want to say that. So,
Well, it's what I was saying too about. Well, you might as well just call them Karens. There's nothing else you can do. You're trying to prove a
exactly.
point, so then you just get louder and louder, and then you use words that, maybe are a little off the cuff, but
Yes.
just trying to prove a point. That's really
Right.
all. And at some point, we need to realize, hey, you've actually said the words, so the words are out there. That's all you can do. Anything past that, you're not making it better. You're actually
Right.
making it worse.
Exactly. Exactly. But I did have to, for myself, circle back and go back and tell this family member that I apologize for yelling and screaming.
Yeah.
Now, they did not, it didn't go as planned, like, anything else. I didn't get exactly what I wanted. I actually got more put on me in the process. But I know in my heart, I said and did what I needed to do. I apologized for yelling, I apologized for screaming, and I made sure they knew I loved them.
Right.
And at that point, I don't know, at this point, I don't know what else to do besides love, whatever that looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, love is a word,
Ooh.
but it is an action. And,
Right.
part of that action, as I was saying, is communication. And if you can't communicate love, I mean, we've done things like with gifts and things like that. You can always do that. And then sometimes, like in my situation, even gifts aren't received. So a
Correct.
card is not received.
Actually told to not
Not send, yeah.
do
right.
not send a card was received.
So again, the burden is always on us.
Correct.
The pain,
Yes.
the pain that we feel can only be alleviated by our own changes and how we process the situation and we deal with the situation on our own. And a lot of people have a tendency to want to deal with the situation by trying to change the other person, and
That's right.
you
That does
you
not work.
can't. If you
just
can
can't.
communicate and you guys can, if you can come to some kind of a healthy agreement between you two, that's one thing. But whenever the communication is not happening, when it's been severed for one reason or another, prayer is always an option. I
Well,
believe in prayer.
Prayer should be your number one, absolutely. But I think everyone knows this. Unfortunately, pray about it. I'll pray for you.
Yeah, I know. Those
have
words,
become cliches.
Meaningless because people say them just to get out of a situation.
Yeah, well, I'll pray for you.
And
And you're like, I don't know what to do. Well, just pray about it.
But see, I'm talking about repairing ourselves. So
Correct.
if I'm saying
That
pray,
internal, like-
that means you're in your own bedroom, you're in your own closet. You're not talking to anybody about this prayer. This is you and God. And I'm saying to make yourself feel better. For me, prayer works.
Right.
And if you can spend a little time with Jesus, they say,
Right.
maybe that'd be helpful. Some people need a psychiatrist, or is it psychologist or psychiatrist? I don't know. The one you talk to, not the medication one.
Right. Psychologist.
Psychologist. Yeah, you may need somebody to talk to, and even other family members that you might be closer to. If you're having an issue with a family member, there might be another one that you can communicate with. I know that you've been able to share a few things, and
Right.
now one thing you got to avoid though is putting down the other person. If you're
Correct.
communicating, especially with another family, and outside of that, you don't want to be the gossiper. You don't want to just go around, saying my brother or sister or whatever is this, that, or the other to everybody, because to them, they might not be that at all.
Correct.
And that's another thing that's always bugged me about people who say, you can't be friends with this certain person if you're going to be friends with me. And the thing about it is, all friendships are different. All relationships are different. That's why I can be married to you for 26 years, but somebody else couldn't be married to me for, my past. And
Right.
uh, people just, they communicate differently, they click differently, and so I can be friends with somebody that somebody else hates.
Right.
And so I shouldn't go around saying this person is bad, this person, if I don't like them, if I don't get along with them, because they may be the greatest person in the world, I shouldn't be going around putting them down.
Right.
Because to me, we didn't click.
Well, and I was going to address that when you say you love them, love is your guide. Love will direct how you would talk about that person, how you would address that person, how in some instances, as hard as it is, you can let that person be alone because you love them. You can let that person live their life and not come into it because you love them. And that's so hard. Some people don't understand that, but when you fight for it and it's told over and over and over and over, I don't want it, then
Yeah.
you have to say, okay, love says I have to listen to that. And I have to say, okay, I understand that for now. But that's so hard because love would tell you, no, you keep fighting. No, you don't give in. But then at some point, where is that crossover where you have to say they don't want it, and that's why I have to show my love by saying I hear them, I hear what they're asking, and so I'm going to do what they asked.
Well, thank God there are many, many different ways we can show our love.
Correct.
And if the communication has been severed, and if they don't want to receive a card or a letter, surely we can find, other ways to show our love.
Right.
Or to, express love. And truthfully, even the separation, if that's what they want, is a form of love. You're giving them what they asked for. And,
Right.
so,
But it's hard for when you are a person that wants to fix things.
right.
When you want, you know time is short. You know you don't have, you can't bank on tomorrow. And so it's in your mind, I've got to fix this. But then the other one says, no, I don't want it fixed right now. And you have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
And that's hard. That's very, very hard. But I think that's where being a Christian and having, biblical values to lean back on, to fall back on, to rely on, that we know in the realm of it, all these earthly things are just earthly things. And they're not going to go with us. And this is only for a time. And I keep saying this day in and day out, everything changes.
It does.
Everything
Yeah.
changes. So as upset as we are about things today, somehow in some way will feel different about it tomorrow and the next day and the next day after that. And things will happen differently.
Right.
So we can never stay. It's only for the moment. That's all we can do. So I guess what I would say out of this podcast is that we have to keep doing what we're doing, praying about it. Oh, yeah. A while ago, I raised my finger and I didn't get to say this.
Ding, your light bulb went off.
Yeah, my light bulb went off. I learned kind of recently, and it's so simple, but I get it. The Bible says we are to be ever praying. And when I was younger, I was like,
How do you do that?
that's a lot.
Right.
Come on.
It's 24 hours in a day, man.
Come on. But I recently realized I like to clean. It's weird. I do not have a super clean house, but I still like to clean. I find myself in projects and doing things. But nonetheless, I have moments of silence where I'm in my head and I'm having conversations with God. I'm talking about, I'm not all like, "Our Father, which art in heaven." It's not nothing like that. Just talking to God like, you just got to talk to God like he's a friend.
Yeah.
He is your father.
Just
but
like you
he's
and
your
me
friend.
hanging out
Right.
here on this podcast.
Right.
You're just having a chat.
Talking about things going on and things that are happening. And, I ain't saying I'm perfect. I don't do it all the time, but I find myself doing it more than I ever have before. And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that I internally do that. And I do believe that's what that scripture means,
I think
because
so, yeah.
you can't be on your knees 24 hours a day and travail, and that just doesn't work when
My
You're a
knees,
living human being.
my knees wouldn't allow me to be on them 24
Exactly.
hours a day.
Exactly. So I think it's
I
just
mean, even
having.
Monica Lewinsky couldn't. Oh wait, too far.
And you know what's crazy? People, podcast, vloggers, people even doing video games and having the things. You can talk for a long time to people. You can carry on long conversations if you want to. So get in a conversation with God. Just say, God,
Why
yeah,
not?
why not? Because this is what's crazy, and I think this is what happens. It says that God is like that still small voice. Every once in a while, I have little bitty answers, just little bitty, that I could say, that's just me. But then it sounds right. It lines up. It makes sense. So why not give it to God? Why not say that is that still small voice that I'm
Well,
hearing?
who's to say you could even make a noise or take a breath if God wasn't allowing you to? So it all comes
Right.
from Him. It all, everything,
Exactly. Exactly.
everything flows from Him, flows to Him.
Exactly. So there is something to be said that we're in a day and age where I think more and more people are seeking, and it's not go to a church your Sunday mornings and open your Bible and sing this hymn and do this prayer. And I'm not talking that. I'm talking truly seeking that
Yeah.
something's going on in this world and what's happening all around us. There's this awakening happening, I think, deep down in the human consciousness.
Well, even Trump and his fake news, your fake news, I think that was the spirit itself speaking, against all of the bull, all the lies out there. And I think people are, having their Santa Claus is not real moment.
Right.
And the awakening without having resources, without having answers, you can't, some of these topics you can't go to your parents about. They don't know.
They don't. That's what's so sad. That is.
You look crazy when you go to your friends about it, so you want to go to a stranger.
Well, we were talking about this.
Come to this podcast.
We kind of got, I don't want to say woke, but we got more aware of things that were changing and happening about 2000 and, well, about YouTube. Time started watching YouTube. So 2006, 2007 is when we started learning about some things.
Mm-hmm.
And started learning even about preppers and things
YouTube
like that.
Woke up so many people.
Right. But
crazy.
that's what's crazy is conspiracy theorist. It was like if you prepped, you were a conspiracy theorist. That was just ooh.
Yeah. But that's one thing you can ask your grandparents. Because they did it just because of the depression. You had the depression and stuff like that as well. But it was a lifestyle to can food.
I was going to say theirs was a completely different method than what we have. We're able to buy 25-year life shelf food kind of stuff. They didn't have that kind of stuff. Like you said, canning and even having to do where their meats and they would salt them and how they would have to prepare them for like a dry storage or something like that. Yeah. So they had to do completely different methods than we have to do. We are very blessed. We can just buy it, get it come in a bag and it's ready to go. But what was the topic on that? What were we talking about at that moment?
I don't know.
Oh, I got all off into that. But anyway.
Granny and Papa, storing up and saving and prepping.
There we go. We were talking about looking to them, how we can, things that are going on, being able to look at them and trying to prepare. Some things we can look to our family, but some things, the younger generations, they're getting more prepared. And now if you're not prepping, if you don't have food, if you don't have some water, if you don't have some supplies, you're not going to be ready. And that's how the majority are looking more at that as you should prep. When it was looked at 15, 20 years ago, you're crazy if you're prepping like this. And now it's almost encouraged. Now, maybe not across the board, but it seems it's more talked about than it ever has been. Because there's so many different things that could happen. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, again, that reality, the truth, people wanting the real thing. And when you're starting to look at reality, then you start to see how ugly some things really are, and it makes you think, maybe I ought to store up some food. Maybe I ought to
Right.
store up some water or something like that. And
Well, you know what's so funny is, have you ever have you had a friend or someone you knew that,
never had a friend. You're my first.
well, when you knew them, they were either skinny or fat, vice versa, and then
Oh,
you saw
me?
them 10, 15 years later and it was reversed. They
Yeah,
were
yeah,
then,
yeah.
if they were skinny, they were fat, or if they were fat, they were skinny. And it was like, whoa, that's crazy. Wow, I'm just amazed. If you would have stayed with that person, you
You
wouldn't have
wouldn't have.
noticed.
Nuh-uh.
You wouldn't have seen it happen. It would have happened in front of
That's the
you.
boiling frog.
Right. It would have happened in front of you, and you're like, one day you're like, oh, you are skinny. Yeah, I remember you used to be. Yeah. So the same thing, that there are so many people, like you said, they're in the pot, they're boiling, and they have no idea. They're living their. Let's go watch TikTok. Let's go learn this TikTok dance. Let's do this. Let's
Well,
just
if I really think about it, there is a generation of people like that. But I'm
right.
seeing that more and more of the older generation, myself and people like yourself, are doing leaning more towards the prep and, hey, let's turn off the TV, let's learn a little bit
Mhm.
more, things like that. But there is a whole generation, a youth generation, that is scary.
I
And maybe
know.
maybe it's always been that way. Maybe the elders have always looked down at the youngers and said, "You guys are scaring us." I don't
You
know.
know what's funny too, with our two family members, we have one of the younger generation and one of the older
Yeah.
generation, and
Yeah.
it's still similar in
It
some
is.
of the areas.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting.
It is.
But like I said, I think everyone has a family member, a friend, someone that they have that kind of
Or
issue
some
with.
situation that
Some,
they've been through
yeah.
that you're banging your head against a wall trying to fix it,
What do I
and
do?
you've probably, said you're sorry 1,000 times, or
Mm-hmm.
you've begged for forgiveness or whatever, even for things maybe that you haven't done, and you just don't get anywhere. You get
Yeah.
nowhere because the agenda just seems to be separation.
Right.
And
Right.
so I guess you have to give in to that. And you pray from afar, you love from afar, you uh,
Well, I don't know if it is a
do unto others is always the golden rule. But
absolutely. And I don't know how vital it is, but I think it is important you make sure yourself is right in the situation, however that
yeah,
goes. If you did a wrong, correct it
yeah,
or own it. Or if you didn't, you have to politely not own it. And that's very hard to do. Very hard to politely not own something. But it can be done. It's just hard. It's very, very hard
yep.
because you have to take that backlash and still stand your ground, but in respect.
Well, we have this
So,
inside of us. We tell ourselves we don't want them to believe this lie they believe, and
right,
well, maybe just have to let them. I don't know. Find the pieces, the crumbs on their own to the truth.
right,
Yeah.
right. Wow.
Has this been a long one or has this been a short one?
I can't tell. 7:40, I have no idea, but I've enjoyed it. I
Yeah.
know I have. I think I'm good with a wrap up.
All right. Well, it's been an interesting conversation. I
It
hope
has.
anybody
It
that gets a
has.
chance to watch this feels the same, and hopefully we'll do more.
And if you have any questions for us, if you have any topics that you would like to share, that you would like us to talk about or address,
What's your phone
or
number? I'd like to get your phone number.
I'm not giving out my phone number,
Oh.
but I'm just saying, leave it in the comments. Comments down below. Everyone says that. Leave it in the comments down below.
As long as it's still below. It sometimes started off, off to one side, and then people were like, I don't know which direction it is now.
Well, however you would want to, if there was a way that you would want us to talk about something and you would like to get that message to us, let us know.
Just let us know.
Hall of Creation Podcast. I'm Cretia.
I'm Lance.
God bless you, and thanks for watching and listening.
On this July 17th of 2022.
Yep. All right. Bye.
Goodbye.